Planning Minister Prue Gowd regrets she is unavailable for an interview tonight. A short time ago I spoke to Luke Foley, Shadow Minister for Planning and Leader of the Opposition in the Upper House. Luke Foley, welcome. Joe Tripodi was in the witness box at ICAC this afternoon. Were you surprised, or what was your reaction when you heard of his alleged involvement with Nathan Tinkler in undermining Jodie McKay in Newcastle?
Quentin, not much about Tripodi surprises me. I first moved for his expulsion from the Labor Party 20 years ago. I'm glad he's no longer a member of the party. It did come as a surprise, to be honest, that Tripodi would seek to damage or cruel the re-election chances of a sitting Labor MP. I think that has come to a shock to everyone in the Labor Party.
On that other item of the Planning Assessment Commission, it's an arm's-length independent merit assessment process. It's untouchable and incorruptible. Do you have confidence in the Planning Assessment Commission?
I do have confidence in an independent arm's-length assessment process to consider in detail an application such as the one for T4. But I do have a concern, Quentin, that the Planning Assessment Commission lives somewhat in the shadow of the Planning Department. I'd like to see it beefed up, given more resources.
Statutorily independent.
Reporting to the Parliament, potentially, because I do think living in the shadow of a Planning Department that, for good or bad, sees its role more often than not as fostering and approving economic development activity.
It's got to get the economy moving.
That handicaps the ability of the PAC, the good people, the respected independent people on the PAC, to conduct their duties genuinely at arm's length.
This key question, though, what about the role of the Land and Environment Court? Because the complainants about the PAC is that it's not it has the final say. There's no appeal on the merits to the court.
Now, I highlighted at estimates hearings last week, Quentin, with the Deputy Premier, that the Maules Creek coal mine for Tinkler, the largest coal mine in the state approved by this government, that was the first case where third-party appeal rights against a Planning Assessment Commission, a PAC decision, was removed. I regret that. I do think that there ought to be the ability for people to argue a detailed case at law in the Land and Environment Court.
So if you became the Minister for Planning, you would be moving to put that in. So appeal rights to the Land and Environment Court.
That's the position we took in the very long 12-hour debate in the Upper House on the state's planning laws. I do want to see a response from the government to the Upper House's amendments to their planning bill. Quentin, the Liberals' 5-point contract with New South Wales that they put up at the last election promised to return planning powers to local communities, and their centrepiece election commitment of a modern new planning act for the state is just in limbo. It's been 9 months since the Upper House sent the government's bill back to them, and we don't know what they're going to do with it.
But we've got a housing supply crisis and affordability crisis. What are you proposing to do? Because somebody's got to be able to cut through to get things moving.
Well, Labor supports a genuinely balanced planning system for the state. And when I say balance, I think of three things. A proper balance between economic activity, environmental protection, community participation. A proper planning system, a modern planning system, genuinely seeks to balance those three legitimate criteria.
There's a by-election in Newcastle on October the 25th. The Liberal Party's not standing a candidate. Your party, given the pendulum's got a chance to get it back. I understand Anne Wills, one of the witnesses at ICAC, is going to nominate as an independent. Electors there will want to know where your party stands. Do you support a fourth coal terminal for the Port of Newcastle?
We support, as you said, the independent, incorruptible Planning Assessment Commission, looking at it in detail and considering the arguments both for and against, the economic arguments, the social arguments, the environmental arguments.
You're two bob each way on this?
No, we respect the proper independent role of the Planning Assessment Commission. We'll let it do its work, Quentin.
Mr Foley, your party's reputation in this state has been shattered through ICAC's corruption exposures over the last 5 years, all the way back to Wollongong and the corruption there. How do you make politics and politicians untouchable?
We suffered a resounding thrashing at the last state election. I think I spent 4 hours on TV with you that night going into examining the entrails of the Labor corpse at that election. I think that John Robertson has set Labor on a path of ensuring that we clean up our act, of building a corruption-resistant Labor Party. The challenge for all registered parties across the Parliament
sounds good,
is
but
to build
what practically can you do? Will you support Mike Baird's consideration of stripping out questionable donations, reducing the cap so that you don't have to raise as much money and therefore compromise yourselves as MPs in your individual seat?
Labor's called for a move to full public funding.
That's not going to happen.
New South Wales.
The High Court has consistently opposed it on the basis of its unconstitutionality.
Well, the Premier needs to tell us if he wants to do it first and foremost, but if he seeks a different model where there is a genuinely strict cap on both donations and expenditure, and we move to a system where overwhelmingly the funding for election campaigns at the New South Wales level comes from public rather than private sources, we will engage in good faith with Mike Baird and his colleagues on bringing that in prior to the next election.
Sounds like a developing consensus. Mr Foley, the next state election's on March the 28th, 7 months away. News poll and other media polls indicate your current parliamentary leader, with great respect, John Robertson, is unelectable. Your name has been mentioned in dispatches as an alternative. For the good of the party, will you stand against John Robertson, challenge him for the leadership and lead the party to the next election?
The report you refer to, Quentin, this week was dead wrong. I never agreed to seek a move to the lower house. I've been consistent for the last 3 years. When party colleagues and others ask me whether I'll seek a move to the lower house, the answer is no. John Robertson has the full and unqualified support of everyone in New South Wales Labor. There are always questions asked about opposition leaders. John has worked long and hard in reviving state Labor after a crushing defeat. He will go to the election as our party's candidate for Premier with the support of everyone in New South Wales Labor.
Luke Foley, thanks very much.
Thank you, Quint.